Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We've got Nick Farabaugh from PennLive.com here to talk with us as he's also at NFL owners meetings. We'll talk about what things are getting said there, whether or not Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith can continue building the offense for what the Steelers eventually need, and a lot more here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. More on them later. Nick Farabaugh joins us, and this man hit the Mark Kaboly pose straight out the gate. I have to say, I am going to find the clip when Alan Saunders did it yesterday on our show, and you did it today. I'm going to put them side by side and who did it better, because frankly, this is one of the best running jokes of all time.
Hey, I'm glad Kaboly's taking it well down here too, dude. It was hilarious. Thanks for having me on, Chris. But man, we had so many laughs in the media workroom yesterday on this, man. Incredible.
It certainly was incredible. I still can't believe it. I got to have him on to just discuss it because that's an all-time moment, that picture. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look up Mark Kaboly, owners meetings. You'll find the picture. But anyways, let's get to the main topic at hand, Nick. I wanted to talk to you because with the furthering news, Art Rooney saying that Aaron Rodgers, it's getting closer. It's a foregone conclusion at this point that Aaron Rodgers is going to be the Steelers quarterback unless something crazy happens, and he's not. But let's assume for a minute that he is. Like right now, he is the Steelers quarterback. It's bigger to me than just him meshing with Arthur Smith, because remember, this isn't the long-term plan. The long-term plan, at least as I've talked about it, you've talked about it, that we think the Steelers could be going after their big swing at quarterback in next year's NFL draft class, trying to find the franchise guy in that year. So I ask you, Nick, is it possible, or what is the biggest thing that you'd be looking for this offense to develop between Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers that could actually carry over to a rookie quarterback and pass something on to them meaningful that would give them a better chance to hit the ground running and make this offense hum even with a young quarterback?
I think it's interesting because Aaron Rodgers' preferred type of offense, this spread 11 personnel out of the gun, is so different from the under center, 12 personnel, heavy stuff that Arthur Smith does. But what I actually think is interesting is, can Arthur Smith take something from Aaron Rodgers' offense and give him a different mode to this scheme? I actually think that's part of what could maybe happen. I think when you are looking at different styles of offense and you're trying to mesh things together and you're a coach and you're ever evolving in the NFL, I think being able to mesh your scheme to your players is so important. But sometimes we even see Sean McVay doing this in LA and Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco and other top offensive coaches switching their schemes. Like, for example, McVay and Shanahan were forever wide zone guys. Now they're gap guys in the run game scheme. McVay is not an under center guy anymore. He's an 11 personnel gun type quarterback because Stafford's that. And I just think that is the type of thing that Arthur Smith can kind of look at and say, man, how do we kind of get DK Metcalf involved in an offense? And what's the prolific kind of nature of this Aaron Rodgers offense that has made it work for so long, obviously outside of just Aaron Rodgers being the talent that he is at his peak. And so I think when you look at the synergy between player and personnel, I actually think that's what you can take the most from this when you're especially looking at a rookie quarterback, right? When you are developing a rookie quarterback, when you are kind of catering an offense to a rookie quarterback, fitting their strengths, giving them the best ecosystem to grow, develop, and work on their weaknesses is so important. And we even see, quarterbacks with significant weaknesses have a offense tailored perfectly to the strengths, and then they are able to develop and get better on their weaknesses. And then you can open up the entire inferno, and it's like, boom, there it is. And so I actually think when I'm looking at this, Chris, I want to see adaptability. I want to see Arthur Smith learn how to kind of think on his feet a little bit and learn how to meld offenses, to his personnel, because I don't think he did a great job of that last year, and I think this could be a learning opportunity for him.
No, I think that's where it's going to be interesting to see if it's something that can carry over, because like you said, stylistically, Aaron Rodgers, his style of offense is not what the Steelers were doing last year. But I think you bring up a great point. The best coaches are the ones that flip styles that mesh their style to fit certain players and find different ways to open up certain players and are willing to modify what they want to do around the skills that they have in front of them. I think case in point, you've seen the Steelers switch from a team that specialized in how their front worked and how they blitzed when they needed to get more complex in their blitz game, and they set up the secondary to try to appease that. With Darrell Austin being the defensive coordinator the past few years, they've done that with the efforts to make Fitzpatrick more opportunities to be a playmaker, and that worked for a few years. Obviously, it hasn't worked the last 2 years from a playmaker standpoint, but he's still done a good job keeping the lid on the things from the defensive line. So you look at what the Steelers have done across the board, developing their offense, and how they can the fact that they hired Todd Haley to make the offense different, and Ben Roethlisberger gets the ball as he became a quarterback. He was able to extend his career by many years. I think that's what's going to have to happen here. Is Arthur Smith really needed to come up with a version of his offense, or incorporate what Aaron Rodgers does well into his offense for at least a year. But it will be curious to me to see if they find a way to if they find a way to be able to get to move this offense forward in a way that sets it up so it's an easy transition into next season.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing is, kind of how you build out an offensive structure. Like an offense schematically has different modes. You have to have different modes, right? You have kind of for game periods. And I do think the Steelers last year kind of struggled between fixing in those modes, understanding how their players, like Najee Harris, for example, why was he a wide zone back so often last year? He should have been a gap guy, right? Like that, just basic things that I think you can fix it to. And so that's kind of one of the ways I would like to see them kind of work with Aaron Rodgers is, okay, yeah, we'll take things that you have obviously done very well over your career, and we'll fix these in because it works with George here and DK here, and we'll kind of mix it in with what Arthur Smith does, which is the under center, 12 personnel, all of that stuff, and we'll kind of create this concoction. And I think the Steelers really actually struggled with this with Justin Fields last year at times when they were trying to find that balance, right, between Arthur Smith does well, the QB run game, all of these different things. And so I think this is actually really good to see the adaptability of the Steelers. And when you're building an offense out, especially for a young quarterback, I think more importantly than anything, the structure you give them, that's from O-line, receivers, personnel, to coaching, to schematics, it matters so often. I think I'll give you the kind of thought that I look at. I look at how the 49ers worked with Brock Purdy. I think this is a really interesting kind of study case because Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. And he struggled out of Iowa State with a lot of things he does really well now. But they built him around a heavy play action offense where he didn't have a lot of pressure on him, and they were able to run the ball very efficiently. Now, though, he's been able to kind of improve the deficiencies, and he's a much better drop back passer. If you put Brock Purdy on 3rd and 13 nowadays, he can make you pay. He couldn't do that as a rookie because the best things that coaches do are, and I think, Sean Payton did this with Bo Nix last year too. Bo Nix was flawed coming out of Oregon, but he's talented. But he was in a really good scheme catered to what he does well. And all of a sudden, as the year went on, you saw him be able to do more and more and more. Because when you are able to really work out your strengths, you can get better at your weaknesses. This is how Josh Allen became who he is. I mean, he was all over the place throughout his first few years in Buffalo, and now, of course, he's one of the elites. So I think that is kind of how you meld a rookie quarterback to being that guy. And the Steelers have not shown the ability yet to develop a rookie or put them in a great spot. Their ability to kind of build a ecosystem for a quarterback to be successful, it has not been there in recent years. So it's definitely something that they're going to have to learn.
No, it is going to say that. And like, I think it's good that they're trying it and that it's going to be thing, but they have to show that they can do it. I think that's the bottom line here is that I think Arthur Smith, I wouldn't say last year was a success. I would say that he upgraded the Steelers offense. They went from being bottom of the barrel to middle of the pack, which is something that we said the Steelers needed to do for years. But now he's going to have to show more that, more than that. Not that I think that Aaron Rodgers dynamically changes a whole lot, but he's got to show his adaptability to say, hey, what strengths can we work in? Because last year, I still don't think that this team used Darnell Washington as a strength as much as they had. I don't think that they used Mike Williams as much of a strength as they needed to. So these are things that Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith, they need to work out with Aaron Rodgers this year and make it so that there is an identity. As Najee Harris said, and for all the things that people want to be upset about Najee Harris about, I think one thing he was right about, he's like, the Steelers didn't have an identity on offense when he was there for the most of the time. They wanted to be a strong running team. They weren't. They were a team that ran the ball a lot and made big plays on occasion. And they need to be more than that moving forward. And if they can set the railroad tracks for them to be that in 2026 this year, I think that will make this year a win. But they have to do that. And that for them, it's going to require Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith putting some things together that impact more than just this year. When we come back, I want to talk more about the offense with Nick. I want to talk about specifically wide receiver 3. And this is assuming they don't draft a top end wide receiver and they don't trade away George Pickens. Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, who fits there? We talk about that and the NFL rule changes that were proposed and not accepted or accepted here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab the last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. With Gametime Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands of options. The seat view feature is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like in the venue. It's so reassuring. And the best part, you're covered with the Gametime's lowest price guaranteed. If you find a better price somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference of those prices. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Remember to make your next event even better by going to download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Nick Farabaugh. Nick, I thought it was interesting when Mike Tomlin spoke earlier this week at NFL owners meetings. He was asked about Roman Wilson, and he himself brought up Calvin Austin and their parallels as far as both of them being injured and not playing their rookie years, and then how Calvin Austin has bounced back and become a threat for the Steelers. And now he's a guy that heading into his fourth year could be a more formidable part of the offense. But Nick, this team hopes that Roman Wilson can make a similar rise to that because they made him a 3rd round pick, not even a 4th round pick, and he'll be entering his 2nd year. But what do you see in this coming battle for these guys where it's going to be coming down to who can get more playing time? Is Calvin Austin just going to win this by default, or do you think Roman Wilson can shake some things up when we get to training camp this year?
I mean, I kind of think Calvin Austin's going to win this battle, and here's the reason why. I just think he does more than Roman. I see a very clear role for Roman Wilson. I think he's a explosive receiver that wins straight off the line and can outrun you. But the route running kind of was always raw coming out. He was always going to need a little seasoning there. But if he can win on, drag routes, over routes, things running horizontal across the field just through his speed and his ability to win kind of in his route stem, that's where his role is going to be. It's going to be in the play action game. He's going to be able to get chunk plays. But I think Calvin Austin, he can win deep. You can use him as a screenplay kind of threat. You can use him over the middle of the field and kind of how he can win throughout his route stems. He could separate. I've heard a lot of people say, where's the quick separator, right? If Rodgers comes, for example, he's always had a really quick separator that wins right off the line of scrimmage. Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson. You think of those guys. Calvin Austin has a shot to be that guy. I think they've kind of I don't want to say undersold or underutilized his ability to route run and kind of win in and out of his breaks really quick. He's got great releases. I think he's got some of the best releases from the slot in the division. And so he's really able to, I think, really separate and throttle down. And so I think he's probably going to win the battle just because I think he's a more versatile threat. But I also think there's a clear role for Roman Wilson. You know, the play action under center stuff, the over routes, the explosive plays. There's going to be a role for him. It's the same thing he did at Michigan. I just think Calvin Austin's a more versatile threat right now. Roman Wilson needs to take a step forward in a few areas.
No, I feel you on that. And that's something that I've been wondering, too. People saying the Steelers need that separator in the middle part of the field. Calvin Austin can get away from guys. We've seen him do it. He's becoming shiftier. Like, one thing I noticed early on in his career, he could not get off the press. Like if you pressed with the line of scrimmage, he was toast. Not that he's elite at that, at getting past that now, but he's better. And he gets off the line a bit better. It's harder to press him. I think he's learned how to use his wiggle and his quickness, off the ball a bit better. And that's made him a threat there. And those are the things I don't know if Roman Wilson can do that well, because we haven't seen Roman Wilson in real action yet. And like, that's the thing with me is that, like, look, I loved Roman Wilson's college tape. I thought there was potential for him there as a mid-round guy, and that's where they got him. And I thought, like, hey, you know what? That guy can be a future, threat in your offense and that you work into things. But he doesn't have Calvin Austin's pure, speed. In my opinion, I think that that's one thing he doesn't have in his bank. He is fast, he is quick, but I think where he's going to have to show is he's going to have to show that he is able to learn fast enough to develop the things that Calvin Austin has developed over his first 3 years in the NFL, and that's not going to be an easy task.
It's not, and I do think the good thing for Roman is, I talked about his role, and I just think it's so easily identifiable in the scheme. Like, I just think running those overs, running those drag routes, like using his speed and explosiveness, I think that's like Roman's superpower. And it's always been his ability to just hit the gas. Like, he goes from 0 to 100 right away, and most corners just can't keep up with it. It's just hard. And he's got this kind of ability with his hands to do, like, get the hands off him when he's going up and into his breaks. So he's got this like really unique ability and easy ability to get these explosive plays off play action. And he does play bigger than his frame too. So even if they stay attached to his hip, like, he's able to fight through contact. He's got pretty good hands. He's able to go up and even make some plays despite his size. He's like a super tough kid. I think that's really good for him. But I do think he's just got a limited route tree. And I think that was one of the big things that caused him to fall. And I think there's potential there. I think he's got quickness. I think he's got the ability to get in and out of his breaks really fast. I think it's just going to have to be, it's not the athletic concerns, it's the technical concerns. The footwork there, kind of how do you go through that? And so I think that's really where he's going to have to take his leap. But I do think there's a very identifiable role for him, which I think does help him get experience on the field and kind of be able to get that work in to take the steps forward.
Let me ask you this. Is there anything that Calvin Austin can do to earn a future contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers, being in this is the last year of his rookie deal? Or is this the swan song? Does he just head into free agency and that's that?
I mean, I think there's a lot he can do. I mean, he takes a step up from last year. I think that could do it. Last year I just thought he had games where he was really good, but he just kind of faded at times, right? It was like he wasn't completely always there. The consistency was lacking at times, but when he was there, he had stretches where he was extremely good. I just want to see consistency with him. I thought the tape really showed a guy that could separate and get open. I thought there were quality reps there. Like, this is the type of guy you go back and look on the tape. And to me, if you go back in 2025 and he has a really good year, like, you could have seen the signs coming in 24. He was able to get open and just didn't get some targets, but the consistency week to week wasn't there. And sometimes for these guys, it just takes a year or two to get the light on. He missed his full rookie season, which obviously I think still has reverberations effect. No matter how much people don't want to say that, it does matter. So I think if he can take a step up, I mean, last year he had, I think, almost 600 receiving yards. So if he can take a step up, and really get to that 800 mark, that 700, 800 mark, become an explosive play threat. And really what I think he needs to do, because I thought most of his wins last year were down the field. They were vertical. Now he's going to be a vertical threat no matter what, but I think if he can make himself a 3-level threat where he becomes a real problem underneath and in the screen game, I think that's where you can really sell yourself on Calvin Austin getting an extension. I don't think it's crazy to think he could if he does that.
I think part of it also just weighed in for me because, there's the talk about what do they do with George Pickens for the future. They've already paid DK Metcalf a ton of money. He's set to make that for the next 5 years. Roman Wilson's on a rookie deal. So would they pay a Calvin Austin if he was able to light it up enough to keep him around? That we can say, okay, yeah, that worked. That'll keep me in the building.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would, right? I mean, listen. Well, we'll see what happens with Pickens. I think that's obviously the big question. But if Pickens doesn't get a contract, I mean, look at what receivers are going for. I mean, Tutu Atwell got $10 million a year. I think Calvin Austin's better than Tutu Atwell, to be quite honest with you. And so I really think, Calvin's got an ability to cash in, but he's probably not going to. I mean, Tutu Atwell had 42 receptions for 562 yards. Calvin had, I think, 2 more receptions or a few more receptions and like 5 less yards. Like, it's basically the same player. So, I mean, you're probably signing him for, let's do inflation, 2 years, $24 million. I mean, in this day and age, that's not even that crazy for a guy that could maybe do that. But if he takes a leap, I think that's easily where you kind of throw him into the idea and say, man, this guy could really be a long-term piece, because I think that speed is unique, and his ability to kind of get in and out of his breaks and separate really did flash last year. So I think there's upside with him even heading into year 4, and I think that's what's really encouraging about him.
It does sound encouraging. We'll see how that continues to play out. We'll keep it here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We want to talk about those proposed rule changes, what passed, what didn't pass, and what Nick and I think of them. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. Nick, let's talk about some of these rule changes that did pass in the NFL. One, the rule change has been passed to allow both teams to possess the ball in overtime during a regular season game, not just the playoffs. They've also expanded a replay assist as well. But let's talk about the overtime rule as far as that. I do get that there's some people that you'll think back to that Chiefs Bills playoff game there, but I do think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out when the first team when the first team does just hits a field goal, and then in the regular season, and even if they score a touchdown, if it doesn't end anymore, because there's always people who just gripe about what the rules are, overtime rules are, when it doesn't work in their favor.
Yeah, I mean, well, this I think has the potential to really up the amount of ties, which is interesting. And I think, you can easily see where they go field goal for field goal, and then by that point, how much time is really left for anything to happen, or
right?
Touchdown to touchdown, right?
Yeah.
I do think it gives an intrigue to the game. I do think I like the idea of both teams touching the ball. I do personally, but I do also hate the ability to have a tie. I don't think there should be ties. I think that everything should end in a win. I really firmly do believe that. So I would like to see them, if they're going to go with this rule, have some way to not have the ties come up, because I do think the one potential pitfall of this rule, which I think is a good change, is that we get more ties, and I don't like that. I don't think it's in the spirit of the game.
Yeah, I'm not a big ties guy either. I think that's an important part of it too. Looking at other aspects here, of course, the tush push did not pass. I've been one that I think I've said it on this show. I know I've said it on the North Shore Drive podcast for the Post Gazette. I've been one that thinks like, look, the offense gets so many rules that change that are in their favor. I would have been okay with maybe not outlawing the push tush or the tush push, but making it so that the offense has to declare when they are going for it, and there's a countdown to it where they run off. They do a 10-second runoff if it's late enough in the game, and then that way it's not a free timeout. And then if you want to do the tush push, you declare it, but there's a countdown to do it. It's not with a play clock. It's not like you can fake hike it. Everyone knows when you're going, and you go. And then if you're just the strongest team at that point, you're the strongest team at that point. But I think part of it is the wildness of the play that just does not let you get set and anticipate well, because you have to react immediately if you have any hope of stopping someone on that, especially a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm not all mad that it's still sticking around. But Nick, do you think this is a missed opportunity by the NFL to get rid of this play?
I believe it should stick and stay. I don't. I am very much in favor of the tush push being a thing. Listen, I until I see more data, like it's so limited, right? Because you really don't have that much data. First of all, the reason they would ban it is not even it's for player safety. It's because I think a lot of people, you duck your head kind of in there. You can open up to maybe neck injuries and different things like that. I think here's the thing: the tush push is really only unstoppable for one team. Like Jalen Hurts is uniquely good at this. We've seen guys like Josh Allen get stuffed on this. Like, you think Josh Allen should be great at it, but it's been stopped before. I don't think it is something that should be banned personally. But I think if you are going to ban it, you need some data to show me like the injuries that's caused. I think, kick on field goal block, for example, they're not able to do it. So there is some precedent to it. But honestly, I'm thinking if you ban the tush push, I think you should just ban pushing players forward, period. Even in the piles. I think that is probably going to, because you can't pull them, you can't pull them from behind. I think eventually, if you're going to ban the tush push, I think you're just going to ban pushing for the pile, even the pile forward. Just because even when linemen come from the back, sometimes they come in with the helmet down and then push in. And that to me is also, if you're saying in the name of player safety, that is also an issue. But I think the tush push right now, it's not unstoppable to me. It's only unstoppable if you're Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles, and they were innovative, and they were the ones that created. I think you're punishing innovation. I don't like that.
I hear that. Another rule change, moving the kickoff touchback line from the 30 yards to the 35-yard line, trying to encourage more teams to kick in a way that allows the kickoff to be a thing. Nick, do we just need to scrap kickoffs? Because it just seems like they're trying so many different – it's like the Pro Bowl. They keep trying different things, but none of them seem to work.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they want the kickoff in the game. And it's a safer version of the kick. It's also a weird version of the kickoff. I mean, I don't feel like, they were talking about, wow, this is going to be chaos and there's going to be big plays. There really weren't a lot of big plays off the kickoff last year.
Right.
There were a few, but not many. It is a safer play. That is true. I think this rule is 100% going to incentivize the kickoffs, though. I don't think teams, when it was at the 30, I think you could kind of justify this, but when it's at the 35, I mean, you're basically taking a kick the ball out of bounds penalty and starting them at the 40. I mean, it's essentially it's 5 yards difference, but it's significant. I think we're going to see a lot more kickoffs, which I think is part of it because, listen, it's a 3-phase game. Like special teams, there are guys that live, like Miles Killebrew. These guys live on special teams, and I do think that matters. And they don't want to get rid of special teams. I understand that, so I appreciate their ability to look at this play and understand why. I'm not sure it's a great way of going about it, but I understand why they're doing it. And this is actually one of the times I think the league is, full of it in many ways when they talk about player safety. I think they have shown that many times, like they're going to add an 18th game, for example. But I think this is actually one of the times where it makes sense. It's not as dangerous. And the play can be fun at times, but I think we'll see more returns, which they want to do. They want to bring it back because in the old format, kickoffs weren't even happening, period.
I hear that. The last rules change here. The NFL is going to change how first downs get measured. They're bringing in a camera-based technology to determine this. Nick, have you gotten a chance to learn more about this and what this is? Because to me, this sounds like something that's long overdue. A lot of people talk about how you could put chips in the football that would track it, and then you would know as soon as they broke the plane there. But is this the right move to try to go more in this direction?
I mean, you mean Gene Steratore won't have to pull out the index card anymore, I guess. Huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. This is basically something that should have happened a long time ago.
Years ago.
I mean, we have seen this in other sports work. I think soccer's the biggest one, and I know the VAR isn't everybody's favorite thing if you're a soccer fan, but we have seen a lot of things in technology improve sports. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing here is it's just going to be more accurate. There should be no reason in the modern day that we should not be able to tell what a first down is. Like that is a first down, a touchdown, etc. And even, replay assist, it's being expanded to take away flags. Like if it's an annoying face mask, for example, that will be picked up. It should also go the opposite way. If there is a face mask that is so blatant and doesn't get called, we saw that multiple times last year, the replay assist should be able to call down and say that is a flag. Everything about this makes sense. We've seen the XFL with the Sky Judge literally do things like this that make a lot of sense. And measuring, like having the ability to actually tell where the first down is so basic, and you would feel like it had already been done. But it's a common sense change that should have been done long ago.
Yeah, no more pulling out the chains and then having to bring it here and slow things out. To know immediately, and it'll expedite the game too. Be like, all right, they said the laser says the nose crossed. We're moving on. I think I'm right with you. That's something that should have been done, and I'm glad that they are doing that. And I'll be interested to see how things play out with a lot of these other rule changes, because I've been more on the classic side of a lot of things, but I also think that the defense needs a few rules that favor them moving forward. But we'll see how that plays out. He's Nick Farabaugh. Thanks, Nick, for joining us here. You can read all the work at Penline. Well, Nick, let people can find you, follow you, get more of your work.
You can follow me on Twitter at FarabaugHFB, Blue Sky at Nick Farabaugh. Make sure to read the stuff over at PennLive.com/Steelers, and make sure to check out the YouTube channel, Steelers on Penn Live.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. I'm Chris Carter. You can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We think you're making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. We'll be back tomorrow with more on your Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.